I'm Terry Carruthers, and I'm going to go over how to decoupage a plate. This is a real glass plate that you can eat off of because we're going to decoupage the napkin on the back of the plate. I did this set to go with my color scheme that I had, and now I'm working. I did 8 of those over the weekend, and I just couldn't sleep. I kept going. And this is, I'm working on this set for my daughter to match her color scheme. I'm really pleased with the way they're coming out. So we're going to do one of these. The things you wouldn't need, if you watch the one on Coaster, almost exactly the same thing. A dollar store plate. For my daughter, I happened to find some at Goodwill that are just a little wider on the base, and they're actually a little easier to work with. But I started her set with that, so I'm going to use those. Make sure your plate is clean. I noticed something here, but you want a freshly clean and dry plate. Okay. Those are glass plates. I haven't tried it on a plastic plate. And the Mod Podge, this is not the same Mod Podge. This, not the same as they used to do when we did this 20 years ago. This is dishwasher proof, so you can do them and you can put them in the dishwasher. I made a mistake and I had tried to get it off of one. I soaked it for like an hour, no budging. I then put Goo Gone all over it, let that soak in, left it still, and then soaked it in hot soapy water for another hour after I scraped and scraped with the Goo Gone. Finally did get it off after those 3 processes, but it really does stick. Okay, I think I'll still hand wash them though. But anyway, you'll need a little water. You'll need the clear acrylic spray, any brand will do. I got this Mod Podge on Amazon. Okay. You need a sponge brush for brushing on your decoupage, and you need a little dry brush, a little inexpensive dry brush for smoothing out the wrinkles, and you need a fingernail file for we shave off the paper around the edges. Okay. And a cloth to blot all the water up with. Okay. I think those are the supplies that you need. And you need an iron and ironing board, because the first step of the process is to get the extra plies off of the napkin. Now napkins are either 3-ply or 4-ply. 1, we want a nice flat napkin, but 2, the napkins are stamped with this little pattern to hold the plies together. And what we want to do is iron it so we flatten out those, and so the napkin kind of comes apart. If you watch the how to decoupage a coaster, just skip over this part because we're doing exactly the same thing. But I'm going to iron and iron and iron and iron those edges until I see it beginning to kind of flip apart. And when I press down with my iron, it makes it kind of pop up too. So I haven't burned an iron. I haven't burned an iron yet. I haven't burned a paper yet, and I've got this iron on steam, and I have it on the highest setting. So it's you can see it begin to come apart in the middle before it separates on the ends. But I think this is already separating on the end. And you can see that it's beginning to peel away. So I just grab that layer and peel it off. Now, these napkins I got at Home Goods. I forget the brand. The Caspari napkins are beautiful napkins, and you can get them. The website is Caspari, Caspari, online. One word. Put the online with it, or you get some Temple or something, Caspari. Okay, now continue pressing. I've got to get the second layer off of this one. Remember, Caspari has yet another layer, but this time we only have 2 layers because it's 3-ply. And this one's harder. This one's usually stuck very tight. you can take a needle and kind of prick around the end and get them to pull them apart that way. But I prefer just to iron until they pop apart. And I can feel this one, starting to separate. And I think we're about there. Let me pick it up and see if I can get them separated. Okay. Anyway, believe me, it is on there and you can get it separated, but I have one we can work with that's already separated. Okay, I've got my clean plate. I have a piece of stiff plastic here to work with. One, I'm protecting my ironing board cover, and two, I'm dealing with water, and this will help me with the water. Now, the napkin, this was a bigger napkin. I'm putting it on a plate, and there's more paper than I want to deal with. So I'm just going to cut the napkin so that I don't have so much paper that I'm dealing with. Now, again, there's dry method and wet method. I'm using the wet method because the wrinkles are even harder to get out of a plate. I am on the dry method. If we were doing that, we would paint a layer of decoupage on the bottom of the plate, and then we would position our napkin so that the symbol was face up, position the dry napkin on it, and then work it to press it down so it was glued on, let that dry, then we would put a second coat on top of it, and then we put a third coat on top of it. But pressing down that dry napkin kind of as the plate bends creates a lot of wrinkles. So instead we're going to do the wet method, which means we don't coat the plate first. I've got the plate upside down. I position my napkin on top of the plate. If you want a particular leaf centered or whatever, adjust it however you want it. And then I'm going to pour water on it. And you can pour pretty liberally on it to get it wet. Remember, we sop it up. You do want not to miss any spot on it. Okay, pour my water on, and I take the dry brush, and I now start working in the middle. I got a lot of water on here. I might start by, I'm going to spread the water because there were places that I missed. I'm just take the brush lightly and make sure every part of it's wet. The advantage of having another plate here, I'm just going to pick that up and pour off some of this water. I got a lot of water in there. Okay, that's fine. You can carry it to the sink, pour off some of the water. The important part, get it all wet. Now, I don't know if you can see the top of this, but there are a lot of wrinkles in the top. That's really hard to see. But we start working the top flat of the plate and brushing very, very lightly, brushing these wrinkles to the edge. It puts up with some work from your fingers. I've gotten some glue on my brush. I should have washed off that first. But I'm just very gently touching this, pulling the bubbles out from under it, pulling the wrinkles out from under it, and working the wrinkles toward the edge. Now, the wet napkin kind of stretches, so you can give a pull on the wrinkles very gently with your fingers to pull them out. Now, on a dry napkin, what works better than your fingers is a little bit of saran wrap smoothing it over. But on the wet napkin, this little brush and your fingers do a very good job. Okay, we're working to get all those wrinkles out. And now, once you finish the top and have that flat, no wrinkles, then you're going to move on to the side. Plates are a good more difficult than the coasters. Okay. Now I have the top with most of my wrinkles out, and now I'm going to begin working around the sides, and I just go around a bit at a time, and every wrinkle I see I pull it with my fingers to stretch it. And I'm also making sure there are no bubbles in there, no air bubbles got in, especially right here around the groove of the side. Air bubbles can sneak in. Anytime I see a wrinkle, I just pull it apart and work it all the way around. Now, all the way around, not too bad. But this wetness just makes it a whole lot easier to pull out those wrinkles or flatten them down or smooth them. Okay. But it also is easy to tear a wet napkin. Now you can patch it. And I patched one of these three that I have here, and I was going to show you that I tore a piece out of it, and I was able to take and wet a piece of the napkin that I cut off and find the pattern match and just lay it down over top of it, and I couldn't even find my own patch, and it was a pretty big patch. So all is not lost if you tear the napkin. Okay, I'm working these wrinkles out, patting them down, and I can't tell you how hard it is to get rid of these wrinkles on the dry method, but I did most of my plates for my dining room on the dry method because I didn't know about this wet method. Okay, I pretty well have the wrinkles out of that. Now I want to sop up the water just so I don't deal with so much wetness. Again, if you create any more wrinkles, you just go work them out, or any air bubbles. Now you'll notice, pick this up, and there's a pretty big air bubble, that there's a lot of napkin still around the sides that's wet, and it will cause it kind of pull away. So I'm going to gently get rid of a lot of that napkin. I'm going to hold tight so I'm not ripping at my, let's see how I can get it so you can see this. I'm further away. I'm holding, keeping the pressure so that I'm not pulling away napkin from the base, but I'm just tearing away napkin so I don't have so much excess napkin. Now you could cut the napkin beforehand to be closer to the size of the plate, but this seems to work just to pull away some of this excess. Okay, and the minute you start to pull and you'll start ripping your napkin, so be very careful that the pressure doesn't go on the napkin that's on the plate. Okay, almost complete there. I'm going to cut the video and we'll come. Now you have a pile of wet napkin. I hung on to it in case you need to patch it, in case anything happens now. But I'm going to blot a little bit more. I'm going to go around and examine that I didn't create any more wrinkles in the napkin. Okay, now I'm going to lift it off, and I'm going to get rid of the excess napkin again by using the file. Okay, this, I see more wrinkles here. When you get another view and in another light, you start to think they're going to go with the brush. Get them out very, very gently. And you can't avoid some of the pleats around the edge of the plate. You just, by the nature of that, you're changing the shapes. Okay, but it looks very good. And I'm going to cut away the napkin. Now you could put a layer of decoupage on here before you cut it away. I usually do. And the decoupage would have helped. But don't let the napkin dry. Actually, I think I am going to put it down. No, I'll continue. It's easier for me to tear the napkin when it's just the wet napkin and it doesn't have any decoupage on it. I should have put a layer of decoupage before I peel away, before I cut away, file away the edge. But I'm going to end up with the same product anyway. Okay. You don't have to watch all of this. Okay, I finished cutting around the edge, trimming the napkin off, introduced a few new wrinkles, and so went back with my fingers, and you can stretch and pull them apart, pat them down, get rid of those wrinkles, almost all of them. Now, do not let it dry. Just put your decoupage on right away. I let one dry, the napkin bubbled up and off. Okay, so the decoupage soaks through the wet napkin down and glues it to the plate. Again, gently, don't tear your napkin while you're doing this. This brush is very nice to put it on with. Be sure and cover it all, especially the edges. I think it's usually best to work down from the center to put the glue on, so you're kind of pulling down and not pulling across it. And when you pick it up, you can put another layer. You can touch up the edge, just make sure there's decoupage all around the edge. Go back and check for excess. You don't want too much in there. It will all dry. It will just take longer to dry and look a little thicker on the bottom. Okay. Okay, the layer of decoupage, first layer is finished. Let that dry completely. Come in with second layer of decoupage. Let that dry completely. And then spray your clear acrylic on top of it. Gives it a nice finish. Now, when I was doing these plates for myself, the napkin, by this time I stripped it down, when you look through the napkin, it looked sort of gray, and I didn't like the gray look. I wanted the aqua look that the napkin originally had. And so I just took some paint that I had painted another room with, and I painted on the back of the, so that the aqua shone through. You notice the ones that I did for my daughter, you can see through them a lot more. It creates a really pretty look on a white plate, but I wanted to see the aqua on these plates. Okay, and enjoy, and you'll have a nice set of plates that are now dishwasher safe.